Hey folks, welcome to Team Forbidden's YouTube page again. Andrew the Collector here with a new stun deck for Clear World Stun. This was actually suggested by one of our viewers after we posted our last anti-meta stun deck profile. They thought it would be a cool idea to dabble into Clear World, which I did, and from the playtesting I've done, it's a lot of fun. Is it top tier? Probably not, so don't expect to be going into this thinking that it's going to, control the meta or anything. It's just a nice cool thing to do at locals casually. I'm thinking about taking this to my locals this coming weekend and we'll see how well it does. But for now, let's just go ahead and hop right into the deck profile. So to start off with the monsters, we are doing with 3 Clear Vicious Knight. So basically its effect is that you contribute some of this by tributing a monster that mentions Clear World. So basically any of your monsters except Ecclesia. And it gains attack equal to the highest original attack among monsters your opponent controls. And it's a tie if you choose, which it doesn't really matter. And its secondary effect is basically shared with all the clear monsters, is that you are unaffected by the effects of Clear World, which we'll get into why that is relevant once we get into the field spell. The thing that makes it important is that while it's tribute summoned in the monster card zone, your opponent cannot activate the effects of special summon monsters on the field with less attack than this card, which is basically going to be every monster that they control, which is a really good lockout. And we'll get to the full lockout when we go into the rest of the deck. But the other monsters are going to be 3 Clear Phantom. It's basically the Searcher. You discard this and 1 card to add Clear World and 1 card that mentions it in its name. So basically use this to add the field spell and a support card called Clear Wall, which we'll also get into in just a moment. And then 3 Clear Cube. Basically you normal summon this. It has its secondary effect where you can normal summon again during this turn. So basically if you have Cube and Vicious Knight in your hand, you normal summon Cube, and its other effect will allow you to normal summon again. So you tribute this off for Vicious Knight since you only need to tribute 1 card. So basically that's why Cube is really important. And then for the rest of the monsters, we're running 2 Fualos, 2 Ash Blossom, as well as 2 Dogmatika Ecclesia, because we are running some of the Dogmatika cards in here as extra support, as we always do for stun. And into the spells. The main centerpiece around this whole deck, Clear World. So it has negative effects, which apply to both players depending on the attribute of monsters that they currently control. So first off, during each of your end phases, you need to pay 500 life points to keep this on the field, otherwise you can destroy it. And for light monsters, the player has to play with their hand revealed. Dark monsters, if you control 2 or more monsters on the field, you cannot declare an attack. Earth monsters, during your standby phase, destroy 1 face-up defense position monster that you control. Water, during your end phase, discard a card. Fire, during the end phase, inflict 1,000 points. And wind, you must pay 500 life points in order to activate a spell card. Now you might feel like these are very specific effects, but you also have to reveal, for those who don't know, is that this card came out in like 2007, 2010, 8, I believe. So back then, the attribute of monsters was more akin to certain effects. For example, wind monsters were centered around spell and trap cards. Fire monsters were centered around burn damage. Earth monsters were centered around defense, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's a really interesting field spell, which also goes in tandem with Clear Wall, which is a continuous spell. If Clear World is on the field, you can add 1 monster that mentions Clear World from your deck to your hand. So basically your once per turn Searcher. And monsters that mention Clear World cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage. So pretty good protection. I also wish it protected from spell and trap destruction. And then the most important one, and why Vicious Knight is so prevalent here, is that while you control a level 7 or higher monster that mentions Clear World, your opponent receives all the effects of Clear World regardless of what monsters, if any, that they control. So basically the go-to end board is that you have Clear World on the field, Clear Wall, and Vicious Knight out on the field. So while Clear World is on the field, its effects will apply. Vicious Knight protects you from the negative effects, and Clear Wall will apply all the negative effects to your opponent at once. And also Vicious Knight will lock out your opponent's monster effects out on the field. So basically, it's like Dinomorphia Rexterm. This is the main lock of the deck and what you're aiming towards. Plus, you have a bunch of other cards in here to support this basically, because the big pitfall of this deck is it's really weak to spell and trap removal, which is why we have other cards in here to help support the strategy. And then for consistency, we're running 3 Pot of Duality. You could do Extravagance or Prosperity. It really depends on what you feel. 2 Nadir Servant, 2 Decisive Battle, basically for the spell and for the effect destruction protection, as well as battle destruction protection. 3 Super Poly, 1 Call by the Grave, because in the right moment, Ash Blossom can really hurt this deck, so it's always good to have Call by the Grave. 1 for 1 to get us our cubes, Triple Tactics Talent in case we do run into hand traps, and then 1 Terraforming to get us to our Clear World a little bit faster. And into the traps, it's basically just support cards, 2 Punishment for protection, and 3 Iron Thunder along with Solemn Judgment, mainly for the spell and trap card protection, because Harpy's Feather Duster is the thing, Cosmic Cyclone, Imperm is also a really good one. Basically anything that Vicious Knight can't handle, these are what are in here. These are what Judgment and Iron Thunder are for, basically for your protection. And into the extra deck, we are going 3 Titaniclad, 2 Albion, plus 1 of the new Albaz Fusion Monsters, basically for the punishments, the decisive battles, and everything. Then Garura and Entest for the Super Poly and for the Nadir Servants, along with just other generic Super Poly targets. This is where you can kind of get creative with the deck. Like I've said always, with stun decks, you can go the Super Poly route, you can go the Ultimate Slayer route, a full Dogmatica package if you choose, or just stuff for fodder for Extravagance, Prosperity, or even Gordian Slicer if you want to go that route. No side deck because I'm still kind of figuring out what to put in the side. Probably a few more going first cards like the Solemn Strikes, the Solemn Warnings, maybe even Solemn Scolding if I can, if we can find a way to utilize that, as well as other stuff, probably an extra copy of Super Poly and Evenly Matched, but let me know what you guys think. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoy. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell down below for notifications, and be sure to comment down what you guys want to see us do in the future. And until then, we'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.